Do you believe in magic? Probably not. But if magic suddenly existed, real, like spellbook, recite an incantation magic, you would probably hate it. Not eventually, but immediately. Because we're already living through the closest thing to it, and most of us are doing exactly that right now. So picture this, you turn on the news and the anchor says, everything you do for a living, your whole skill set, can now be done by anyone with a spellbook and the willingness to read it out loud. Not just your job, but things that used to take entire teams. It's just one person, one incantation. We probably wouldn't find out all at once. A few people would stumble onto it first. If we got very lucky, they wouldn't hoard it all to themselves. They'd put it on the web as, with the freemium model, where anyone could get to it. And the second that happened, right on schedule, the protests would immediately start. I don't want some kid wizard taking my job. Everything made with magic is garbage. There's no artistry to it. Magic doesn't belong in the arts. The actual stage magicians, the one who spent years learning sleight of hand, would be furious that their trick was suddenly real and available to everyone. Governments would race to weaponize it and defend against everyone else's version of it. And we would absolutely certainly refuse to teach it in schools because kids need to learn to do things the hard way, the real way, the way I learned. But from the kids' point of view, that's utterly ridiculous. We all fantasized about magic as kids. But if, whatever the version of Letters to Hogwarts started showing up at people's doors, we'd spend the next several months arguing about how elitist it is, how rigged, how dangerous, how the selection process is, prejudiced. This is an obvious description of where we are with AI. Just to date, this video is being filmed in mid-2026, so I know things are going to keep changing fast, but that's where we are right now. The thing in your pocket can pull information, reason through problems, adapt to new situations in very close to real time. It is in many ways surpassed the original Star Trek computer, and that was envisioned another 200 years from now. It doesn't do everything the Star Trek computer does, but it does surpass it in a number of ways. So our dreams are coming true and we hate it. Why? I've seen this exact movie before more than once, and it kind of surprises me every time this cultural amnesia takes over. A very long time ago, I delivered pizza, which was when we didn't have cell phones or, no one had smartphones or anything. So you got the address of the place you gotta go, and you had to look at the giant map on the wall, divided into grids. This map is a couple years old already. It doesn't tell you where construction is. You have to plot your route, and then hopefully you memorize it on the way there. And eventually, of course, you would memorize the town and the regulars, so that made it a little easier. We all fantasized about just being told where to go. So that you wouldn't have to think about it. So then GPS shows up, and the immediate reaction was not gratitude. I don't know if people remember this, because we're so used to it. It's everywhere and in everything now. But it was just a parade of stories about people going, oh, it threw me down a one-way street, it drove me into a lake. I've lived here for 35 years, a computer doesn't know it better than I do. Yes, it does. It can look above, and you cannot. And of course, all those things did happen. It's even at this very moment, GPS is as bad as it's ever going to be. It only got better from there. Nobody complains about GPS anymore unless it doesn't work because you don't have Wi-Fi. You're suddenly this thing you were relying upon isn't there anymore. We just use it silently 100 times a day, and we've completely forgotten the adjustment period. Here's another example, one that will directly incriminate myself. When social media first showed up, I was fully on board with the crowd, insisting it was the end of civilization. I noticed right away that people were just fighting over nonsense. People who'd never fought in their entire lives were now fighting each other over nonsense. And I quit. The language of Facebook and Instagram and, whatever we're calling Twitter this week, is a complete mystery to me. This YouTube channel is genuinely the only thing I do, and I spent years and years just watching YouTube before. That's the only reason I'm familiar with it at all. If I hadn't been so elitist back then, it would have helped me, because I already understood how it could go wrong. I was already mindful of the way it could lure you in and make you behave in ways that you don't want to behave. I saw that right away. Just, again, not because I'm like Nostradamus. It was just one of those lucky things that I happened to be observing. But I would be long past the awkward, embarrassing early adoption phase. Instead, I sat out a decade on pure principle, and the only thing I got out of that was less practice. So people are always on this thing is going to ruin jobs for everyone. Aside from the obvious fact that no government wants a sudden overnight near 100% unemployment rate, there's a weird human psychology where we're born and we think, well, when we learn about human history, we think all the changes that happened before I was born are good. All the changes that happened after I was born are bad. Nobody is out there organizing a candlelight vigil for horseshoers. These people used to, horse-drawn carriages were how people got around. The automobile ended that trade, and we don't grieve it because it happened before we were born. Everything that happened before I was born is progress. Everything that happens after I was born is a catastrophe. Neither of those things are true. We're not actually evaluating the change. We're evaluating whether we had to personally live through the adjustment. The adjustment is what we find uncomfortable. Someone posting a headline about technology ruining everyone's job doesn't cost anything for that storyteller. In fact, it makes them money. My entire working life, everyone has told me the economy was bad. For the second I started getting jobs as a teenager, up to this day, people always, anytime I'm looking for a job, they go, oh, good luck in this economy, good luck in this economy. And then 10 years later, someone says to me, boy, remember 10 years ago when the economy was good? No one ever describes the current economy as good. The past seems better to us in hindsight because we know what happens now. I encourage you to pay attention to how people are describing the present and then remember how they describe it years later. It's going to be very different. So at some point in our very early lives, when we are children and we're excited about new technology and magic and all that, at some point we are conditioned to hate those things. And I don't know exactly where it happens, but we are taught to hate new things. That is not natural because we can't help but make new things. So there's something in our society that conditions us, and that is what we should be on the lookout for. Not to say that every new invention is the most perfect thing that ever happened and won't cause any problems. Everything has side effects, trade-offs. Environmental technology has environmental costs that we don't know about yet. Everything is trial and error. But what sort of world do you think is going to be built by people who reflexively hate everything new? The goal is to just not let the uncertainty do your deciding for you. GPS, the internet, satellite navigation, every one of those went through an ugly, awkward adoption phase that's now completely invisible because the people who got in early just quietly got good at it while everyone else was busy being outraged. And then it just sort of melts into the background of your life. AI is just the current name for that pattern. You don't have to love it, you don't even have to use it. You should not expect the world to bend over backwards to accommodate you. Know how you function and accept it. We could also, instead of approaching things with fear, approach it with curiosity. Because curiosity is what develops these new things in the first place, as well as tests them and finds out their shortcomings. And then we can adjust for that. History's pretty clear about which one, fear or curiosity, tends to age better and produce better results. And that's all I got on that. If you're curious about other things I do, I make comics. The first two, I have 2 graphic novels that are available. No AI was utilized in making them because it takes a really long time to make a comic, and generative AI was not a thing when those were being made. I have a book coming out. Again, no AI was used in that either because I started it a while ago. Links down below. Obligatory self-promotion over. Thank you for watching.